We begin the Gemara today, 6 lines from the bottom of Daf Ayin Gimel Amud Beis, where it says Eisvei. The Gemara here is asking a question on Rabbah. We had a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel when a person is mekadosh a isha with a Tanai that she has no nedarim, but then later Kinsa he had bia with her and it didn't specify any condition. So what happens now? So Rav says that bia is l'shem kedushin and she's married. Shmuel says no, it goes back to the previous condition that he made, so she's not married. Comes Rabbah and says that if it's Isha Achas, if it's a regular case with one woman, that he made a Kedushin with the Tanai, and then Bia, in such a case, everybody would agree that the Bia is not a Kedushin, because it's connected to the Tanai that he already made before. The argument to Rav and Shmuel, he says in a different case, where he married her, he divorced her, and then married her again. But in a case where it's one woman that he makes a Kedushin with a Tanai, and then a Bia, everybody would agree that the Bia is connected to that Tanai, and she's not Mukadeshes if it turns out that the Tanai is not fulfilled. So the Gemara asks on Rabbah, Eisvei, the question is, this is a Mishnah we learned in Masechta Yevamis. So that Mishnah there is talking about Yibum in a case where you have an Isha, she was married, her husband divorced her, and remarried her. And then he dies without any children. So there's a machlokes there in the Mishnah whether the brother could do Yibum or not. Now you may ask, why not? Just because he once divorced her and remarried her, why shouldn't you be able to do Yibum? So as we'll see soon, according to Rabbi Eliezer, there's a Gzeira Midrabanan in this case, that you shouldn't be allowed to do Yibum. And I'll tell you, there's no reason why not. Rabbi Eliezer has a Gzeira Midrabanan. So the Gemara, the Mishnah over there starts off with Chachamim's opinion. Maidim Chachamim la Rabbi Eliezer. Chachamim would agree to Rabbi Eliezer, B'ketana shehisia via. A ketana, her father marries her off, so that's a real marriage, a kedushin min ha-Torah. V'nizgarsha, then she gets divorced. And v'hi yisayma b'chaye av. This is what's called the yisayma in the lifetime of the father, because now she's not in the possession of the father anymore, and her father can't marry her off. V'hachzira, and now the husband went and remarried her, and when the husband remarries her now, this is not a marriage min ha-Torah. Her mother married her off, or her brothers married her off. This is the marriage of a ketana without her father marrying her off. So this is just a marriage midrabanan.
Where's her father now?
Her father's alive, but because she's out of the father's possession, once she got fully married and divorced, she's out of the father's possession, so her father can't marry her off, and she can't marry herself off. So it's all a kedushin midrabanan.
Who's marrying her?
Her brother or her mother. Shecheletzes v'loi misyabemes. So in such a case, if the husband dies, so there's only chalitza and no yibum, and the reason is, when she got divorced from her husband, the first marriage, so that was a complete divorce. But when he remarries her, it's not a full remarriage. It's not a marriage min ha-Torah at this point. So if there's no marriage min ha-Torah, there's no yibum. So you could only do chalitza. So this is the case that's clear that Chachamim would agree to Rabbi Eliezer. But when is this so? If he divorced her when she's a ketana, and and then he remarries her when she's a ketana, so therefore the second marriage is not min ha-Torah. If he divorces her when she's a ketana, and then he remarries her after she's a gedayla. So now when he remarries her, the second marriage is min ha-Torah. And this is going to be the case that's relevant for our sugi here, that he remarried her as the second time when she was still a ketana. So at that point, the marriage is still a marriage midrabanan, but now v'godla, she became a gedayla by him and he continued living with her. Umeis, and now the husband dies, so therefore the second marriage is a marriage min ha-Torah. So the Chachamim say, so for the second marriage, the brother, if the husband dies, the brother could do yibum or chalitza. It's a full marriage. But on this, Rabbi Eliezer comes and says that no, even in this case, a woman that got married, divorced, and then remarried, you only do chalitza and not yibum. So as I said before, this is only a gzeira. Why is this a gzeira? Because there's another case where if he would have remarried her as a ketana, he would not allow to be do yibum. So there were geyser that in any case when he remarries his wife, even though it is a full marriage min ha-Torah, you're not allowed to do yibum. But over here now, focusing on this case, where it said that he married her as a ketana, then divorced her, remarried her again as a ketana, but then he continued living with her as a gedayla. So this is connected to the Gemara before. And originally, he's living with her with a kedusha midrabanan. Then he continues living with her when she's a Gedola. And he never specified with her, when he's living with her as a Gedola, that this is a new marriage, Menatayra. And over here, what do the Chachamim say? And essentially Rabbi Eliezer agrees to this as well, that automatically the Bia, after she's a Gedola, becomes a marriage Menatayra. So v'hahacha, over here in this case, the Ketos Isha Achas Dami, this is going to be compared to a case before, where a person gives a Kiddushin, and then for the same woman, then goes and lives with her, and when he lives with her, he doesn't specify that Tanai that he made at the time of the Kiddushin. So in that case, what did Rabbah say? That the Bia, after the Kiddushin, follows the same status as the Kiddushin. If by the Kiddushin there was a Tanai, so then the Bia is also only going to work if that Tanai is fulfilled. So over here as well, he's living with her as a Katana, and he continues living with her when he's a Gedola, and he doesn't specify that there's going to be any change here. And upligi, and over here we see that the Chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer argue on what it said before in the Gemara, and it seems like that they hold now that if he's having bia with her, once she's a Gedola, that automatically it's considered to be a marriage Menatayra. Even though until now he was living with her as a Katana, and it was only a marriage Midrabanan, even without specifying, automatically the bia, when she's a Gedola, changes, and it becomes a marriage Menatayra. But the question is, Rabbah says that by the same Isha, a later Bia should follow the status of before. If it's not two different Noshim, or if it's at least not one Isha that's similar to two Noshim, because there was a divorce in between, if it's one continuation, how can we consider the Bia later, when she's a Gedola, to be a new marriage Menatayra, if it's following the marriage before that there was Midrabanan? It's the same Isha. Upligi, and they are arguing and saying that it will be considered to be a new marriage Menatayra. And says the Gemara, Hasam Nami, the Gemara gives a similar answer that it said before on Dafayin Gimel. Hasam Nami, there as well, this case is not compared to the case where there was a Kedushin with a Tanai, and then a Bia where there was no Tanai. That's a different story. Why? Because over here, Baha Kamifliki. Over here, the argument is as follows. Mar Sovar, so one opinion is, Adam Yideya She'en Kiddushi Ketana Klum. We're not talking about a case of a Tanai. We're talking about the marriage to a Ketana. Everybody knows that the marriage to a Ketana Menatayra is worthless. And therefore, if he continues living with her as a Gedola, definitely he's only living with her for the sake of it being a new Kedushin Menatayra. And the other opinion is, people do not necessarily know that the marriage to a Ketana is worthless, and therefore, so therefore when he marries her, he's marrying her thinking that this is just a continuation to before, because he doesn't realize that the marriage when she's a Ketana is worthless. So in other words, this is a specific argument regarding this case of a Ketana and then continuing to live with her as a Gedola. But it has no connection to what Rabbah spoke about before, which was Benegeh to Kedushin with a Tanai, and then later he does Bia without a Tanai. A Tanai is a different story. Over there you could say once he made a Tanai once, he doesn't have to specify again. And even Rav would agree that the Bia will not take effect if the Tanai is not fulfilled.
Yes, Rav was speaking about
a Tanai.
But it was a Gedola all along.
Yeah. Over there it's a Gedola all along. Over there it's speaking about a Tanai. By a Tanai it's a different story, so it's not connected to this Braise here. Talk to Gemara weiter. There's another Amayra that said like Rabbah. Itmanami, we learned that Amar Rav Acha by Yaakov, Amar Rav Yechanan, the same as Rabbah, Amakadosh al Tanai. The Kedushin was with a condition, but then Ubaal, and then he was Baal without any conditions. Divrei Akoyel Einas Richay Menu Get. Even though he didn't specify when he was Baaler, everybody would agree that there's no need for a get. It's the same woman. He already made it clear by the Kedushin, so by the when he's Baaler as well, there's no new Kedushin here because it was a Tanai. Eis v'Rav Acha berei de Rav Ikke bar Achse. So Rav Acha berei de Rav Ikke, which was the nephew, he was the son of his daughter. So he asks Rav Acha bar Yaakov, the son of his sister, that is, yeah. So he asks Rav Acha bar Yaakov on the halacha that he just said. So here there's a Mishnah. We also learned this in Yevamis. Chalitze, or it's a Braise actually. Chalitze mutas ksheira. If you make a chalitze, it's a mistaken chalitze, it's kosher. Now, what does it mean, a mistaken chalitza? Eizi chalitza mutas. Rish Lakish says, Kol sha'ay maloi, that the bezin tells the husband, chalitzla, do this chalitza for her, or bekachat kainsa. And with this chalitza, you're getting married to her. And obviously, that's not true. Chalitza is making it impossible to get married to her. So even though he thought he's doing the opposite of what he's actually doing, chalitza takes effect. Rabbi Yechanan argues and he says, no. Ani Shaina, I learn in the continuation of this Braise that it continues and says, if at the Chalitza, he had Kavana for the Chalitza and she did not. If she had Kavana and he did not. Chalitza Sapsula, the Chalitza is going to be possible. They both have to have Kavana that what they're doing is L'Shem Chalitza. So Ma'at Amrit and Yurish Lakish say Chalitza Ksheira, that a mistaken Chalitza means that he thinks that he's getting married to her and the Chalitza is going to be kosher. How could you say such a thing? Elam Rabbi Yechanan, so therefore Rabbi Yechanan says, Kol Sha'ay Malay. So Chalitza Matas means that the Bezdin tells him Chalitzla, do the Chalitza for her, Al Manas Shetitin Lach Masayim Zos, on the condition that she'll pay you 200 zuz for this. Chalitza takes effect, even if she doesn't fulfill the condition, she doesn't pay him anything, the Chalitza takes effect. So what do we see from this? So he's asking now, Rav Acha bar Yaakov, I see from here, Kivin da Avad Maise, even though you made a condition before, but then when it came to the actual action itself of the Chalitza, you didn't specify. You did the action without saying anything. He's Meichel Etnai that he made before for 200 zuz. So Hachanami over here as well, when he made a Tnai by the Kedushin, and then he's boiler, and he does not specify, Kivin the Baal, I should say that once he's boiler, he's Meichel the Tnai. So two details here. First of all, when the Gemara says he's Meichel the Tnai, it doesn't mean he was fully Meichel the Tnai. He still wants the money. After all, he made that Tnai. But what the Rishonim say, what it means is, he's not going to be so particular about the Tnai to the extent that he doesn't want the Chalitza to take effect. He's okay with the Chalitza taking effect, but he still wants his money. She should pay him the money. But even if not, the Chalitza will take effect. So it's not a full mechila. Similar to what it said before in the Gemara, that he's not fully meichel. It's just that he doesn't want the be'ila to be a bi'az nus. Another point is, Taisa says, so then if a person makes a tnai, what are you supposed to do? I mean, he made the tnai, and then he does the maisa. He already made the tnai before. So what do you want from him? Why should the tnai not take effect? So Taisa says, at this point, the Gemara is thinking that even if you made a tnai before, but right before you do the maisa, you're going to have to mention the tnai again. If you don't, we're not going to rely on the fact that you made it before. We're going to say, now you did it without specifying, and the maisa will take effect. So the Gemara says, we misunderstood. No, this is not a raya to our case at all. Omalei bar beirav. So Rav Acha bar Yaakov tells his nephew, yeshiva student, or bar beirav literally means the one that learns by his teacher. Shapika amrit. Are you asking me a good question? Is this the pshat why Rabbi Yechanan said that the chalitza takes effect? So he's going to explain him here. Over there, the reason the chalitza takes effect is because the whole t'nai was not something that could work in the first place. And the reason is as follows. Mechti letzi. Kol t'nai. Anytime there's a concept of a t'nai that's made, whether it's for a chalitza, for a kedushin, or for a kinyan, all these cases where a t'nai takes effect, mehecha gamrinan. From where do we learn this out? B'tnai b'nei Gad b'nei Reuven. From this, that Moshe Rabbeinu made a t'nai with the b'nei Gad and b'nei Reuven. They wanted to get their Yerusha on the other side of the Yarden, and he makes a t'nai only the condition that they go into Eretz Yisrael. What do we learn from there? There's a few details that we learn from that t'nai. One of the details we learn from there is to know the efshel l'kiyumei al yidei shliach. If it's a kind of t'nai that the action that's being done could be fulfilled through a shliach, like over there, that they're going to get the inheritance. Who is going to be the one that they're going to get the inheritance with? So over there, not Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Moshe Rabbeinu is commanding Yeshua to give the Yidden the inheritance of the land. So over there, it's something that can be done through a shliach. So too over here, so kihasam, like over there. So then avat no. Then when you make a condition, it takes effect. But if it's an action that you're doing and you want it to be dependent on a condition, but the action is something that you cannot have a shliach done, only you could do it. So then kihasam, like over there, so you can't do it like with a shliach like over there. Then loyavet no. Then the t'nai does not take effect. So this is one of the things that we learn from b'nei Gad and b'nei Reuven. So over here, when it comes to the chalitza, there's no condition that could be made with chalitza in the first place, because chalitza is something that only this man himself could do. You can't appoint a shliach with it, so there's no t'nai that takes effect. That's the reason why the chalitza mutas is kosher, and she doesn't have to pay him the money that she said in the t'nai that she would give him. If this rule is true, then v'habiyah. If a husband is marrying his wife with biyah, the kedushin is happening through biyah, and he makes a condition that the bia should only be a condition, whatever condition it is. This is a kind of marriage. The bia cannot be done through a shliach. Ki hasam, like over there by Bnei Gadim Bnei Reuben. V'kahave tana, and we say that the Tanai does take effect. Where did we say that the Tanai does take effect? So this was in the Gemara of Ayin Gimel. If you remember, the Gemara they mentioned person that had bia with his wife for the kiddushin, and he tells her only if your father agrees. And the Gemara there has a discussion exactly how the Tanai takes effect. But the Tanai is a Tanai; it does take effect. So we see that we could make a Tanai even by bia, although bia is something that cannot be done through a shliach. That's the Gemara, that's an exception. Mishum de iske shavayis la'adadi, bia is one of the three ways to be mekadesh isha, kesef shtar and bia, and they're all learned from, they all are compared in the pasuk v'yotza v'hoisa, and v'hoisa means marriage, which includes all three, and therefore if you can make a t'nai by kesef and shtar, which can be done through a shliach, you can make a t'nai for bia as well. So therefore that's not a question. Now the Gemara is going to bring other Ameiraim that discuss the same subject as we're speaking about till now. When you make a kedushin and the kedushin does not take effect for various reasons, and then you continue on with bia, whether the bia itself will be a kedushin. So Amar Rav Ola bar Abba, Amar Ola, Amar Rav Elazar. HaMekadesh b'milveh. Person is mekadesh with a loan, which means he lent this woman money, and then he comes to her and says, "You should be mekadeshes to me." And where's the money for the kedushin? I'm being meichel that loan that I gave you, and you don't have to pay me back. Now that's a kedushin that does not take effect. This Gemara says in kedushin, "I'm a kadosh b'mil ve'enim mekadesh," because the money that he gave her as a loan, she doesn't have it here anymore. She spent it. She doesn't have to keep it in her possession. So he's being mekadesh with money that's not even here anymore. And then ubal, and after this he goes and he's boiler. Another case, which we spoke about before, al tanai. He's mekadesher with a condition, and the condition will not be fulfilled. And then a baal, he went and he was boiler. V'pachis meshava pruta, or he gets married to her and he gives her less than a shava pruta. Ubal, but then afterwards he goes and he's boiler. So in all these cases, everybody would agree that she has to get a get from him, because even though in the beginning the kedushin didn't take effect for all these reasons, but nevertheless, once he's boiler, the beila itself is a kedushin, and so she needs a get. So he argues and he says it depends what it is. If you mekadesh a woman, you give her less than a shava pruta and then you boil her, in such a case, yeah, you're right, you would need a get, because this is something that people don't make a mistake about. Everybody knows you need at least a shava pruta for kiddushin, so therefore when he's boil her later, he definitely understood that the previous kedushin that was less than a shava pruta did not take effect. So now the beila itself is l'shem kedushin. Ava bahanoch, by the other two cases mentioned, which was with a loan, being mekadesh with a loan, or being mekadesh and telling her a t'nai that she should have no nedarim on herself. Over there, people make a mistake. Not everybody knows that you can't be mekadesh isha by forgiving her loan, and not everybody is thinking that this isha that I made a condition with her, that she for sure has nedarim, so the previous kedushin didn't take effect. He thinks that she has no nedarim and the previous kedushin took effect. So when he's boiler, he's not doing it l'shem kedushin. Another opinion the Gemara brings here: Omer of Kahane mishmei de'ula hamekadesh al t'nai. You mekadesh isha with a condition, and then you boiler and you don't mention the condition. Tzrichei menu get, she needs a get, because the beila itself will be a kedushin. And this is something that actually happened. Chacham discussed this, and they could not get her out of her husband without the husband giving her a get. They couldn't be mad at this because that the beila itself is a kedushin. From the lashon of this Gemara, the Rishonim say it's mashma that he has a suffix about this, that this beila, we're not sure if it would be a kedushin or not, but they were chayshish for this, and therefore you're going to need a get. Says the Gemara, my tana. This excludes from the following tana. So he darshan that if a woman was not forced and she had a relationship with someone else while she was an Eishes Ish, so she did it willingly, so then asura, she'll be forbidden to go back to her husband. And we understand from this pasuk, but if she had a relation with someone else while she's an Eishes Ish against her will, muteres. So then she's allowed to go back to her husband. That's always the rule regarding an Eishes Ish married to a Yisrael. Now, what do we learn from here? It says in the pasuk vihi. The vihi means her. There's an exclusion here. So v'yeshlocha acheres. From here we learn out that there is another case. Shava b'shalei nispasa. Even though she had a relation with someone and it was not against her will, muteres. But she will be allowed to leave him and go back and marry someone else, or go back to her husband without, or go marry someone else. and even though it was with a will. Ve'ezuzu, what's this case? Shekidushel kidushe tos. If a woman gets married and it turns out that the whole marriage was a tos, and the example would be exactly what we're talking about. A condition was made in the marriage, and it turns out that the condition was not fulfilled, so now the whole thing is a mistake. Even if she has her son that's riding on her shoulders, she can refuse the whole marriage and walk away from the marriage. So what do we see? This Tana holds that even though there was after the condition they made, and the condition was not fulfilled, and it was a mistake, in other words, as far as that is concerned. And even though there was a bia later, but the bia later is not considered to be a new condition for itself. And therefore, even if she lived with him for a while, she could walk out from the whole marriage and it does not take effect. Okay, so that argues with what we said before, that once there was bia later, the bia itself is a condition for itself. Tana Rabbanon, we learned in the Braisa. The Gemara will go into a different sugya in connection to our Mishnah that spoke about marrying a woman with the condition that she has no nedarim, and it turns out that she does, or she has no mum, and it turns out that she does have a mum. So Tana Rabbanon, we learned Hal Chayetzel Chacham. So now it turned out that she does have a neder, but she went to a Chacham v'hitira, and the Chacham was mater, absolved the neder, mekudeshes. So now she'll be mekudeshes because even though she had a neder when she got married, but now that it's absolved, so she has no neder. Eitzel Reife. What's if he married her with the condition she has no mum, and she had a mum but she healed it by a doctor? Veri paisa, ein mekudeshes. Over here it will not help. She's not mekudeshes. Frag the Gemara, ma ben chacham l'reife. What's the difference between a chacham that's absolving a neder or a reife that's healing her? And for the Gemara, chacham oikeres a neder mei karei. A chacham uproots the neder from its root, because how does a chacham uproot the neder? He asks her, in these conditions, would you be interested in the neder in the first place? And if she says no, so that's the pesach to be matter the neder. But when it comes to a doctor, he only heals her from here going forward. And she was sick before, so he made a condition she should have no mum. And when he married her, she did have a mum. So therefore the kedushin can't take effect. Taisus here adds to the Gemara, so it's saying here that she could always be mata neder. So how could the Mishnah say that if you marry a woman with the condition that she has no nedarim, and it turns out that she has a neder, that the kedushin does not take effect? What's going to happen? She's going to go get married to somebody else, and then afterwards she's going to be mata her neder, and then it turns out that the previous kedushin did take effect, and now she's an eishes ish. So this is a big problem. How could the Gemara say such a thing? So Taisus says there's a few answers for this. One of the answers Taisus gives is that this whole thing that it says that she can be mata neder by a chacham is only if she does so before the husband found out that she had a neder on her. But if the husband already found out, and afterwards she went to be mata neder, that's too late. So then she made the neder before. It's not up to the husband to be mekayim or be mevatlet. But the moment the husband found out about it, so he's not makabel this. Even if she goes and she's mata neder, it's too late. He married her on the condition that she has no nedarim. Once he knows about the nedarim, the condition is not fulfilled and it's not going to help. So our Gemara is only talking about when the husband did not find out about it yet. That's one pshat in Taisus. Frag the Gemara, but v'hatanya in a Braisa we learned, there it says that it's the same thing, a mum, a neder, etzel chacham v'tira, she goes to a chacham and he was mated the neder, etzel reife v'ripaisa, she goes to a doctor and he healed her, ain't a mekadeshes. Either way, she's not mekadeshes. Once she had a mum or a neder after the marriage, it doesn't help to get rid of it afterwards. Amar Rave, so Rave answers, or the right gersa here is Amar Rabbe, because Rave will give a different answer on the next daf. Loi kashya. This is not a contradiction, it's two different Tanoim. Ha Rab Meir, ha Rab Elazar. There's an argument here between Rab Meir and Rab Elazar about this. Ha Rab Meir, one opinion is Rab Meir. The Omar Rab Meir says, Adam roitze shetisbaze ishtoi bebezdin. A person would be ready for the fact that his wife should have to get embarrassed and go to a bezdin to be mated the neder. What that means is, when he made this t'nai, that she should not have a neder, that also includes he's ready to accept that his wife would have to go and be mated neder. So if she's mated neder, the kedushin could take effect. But Rabbi Elazar, the other opinion in the second brayso that says that it will not help to be mated neder, so Rabbi Elazar holds that the Omar ein adam roitze shetisbase ishtoi bebezdin. When he made the condition no nedarim, he wants no nedarim. He doesn't want any issues. The fact that she could go be mata neder, that's already not part of the t'nai that he made. He's not interested in this. His wife is going to have to get embarrassed. So therefore, the Braisa says there's no difference whether it's a doctor or a chacham. It's too late to be mata the neder. The Gemara brings where the source where you see that Rab Meir and Rab Eliezer argued about this. So Mayi, where do you see their argument? Because there's a Mishnah in Masechta Gittin that says, a person divorced his wife, Mishom Neder, And the reason is because if he finds that she has nedarim, and like we learned before, a husband, if his wife has nedarim, could divorce her, and he could say, I can't live with her if she has nedarim. So lo yachzir, he should not remarry her. Similar, mishum shemira, a person divorces his wife because there's a bad rumor about her, that she did averis with other people. So then lo yachzir, he should not remarry her again. Now, what's the reason for this? So Rashi he brings, very important for the Pshat in the Gemara and the continuation, that the Gemara in Gittin there says that there are two reasons for this. The first reason for this is that if we allow him to remarry her, so we're concerned that what's going to happen is that she'll get divorced because of this reason, because she had nedarim upon her, or because there was a shemira about her. And then he realizes that he could be mated the neder, or he realizes that the shemira is not true. And she goes and gets remarried to someone else. And now the husband says, oh, the Gedushin was never serious. If I would have known that I could be mated the neder, or if I would have known that this room is not true, then I would have never divorced her. So then that's going to make a shaila on the whole get. And meanwhile, she got remarried to someone else. So therefore, Chacham will geize, you can't remarry her. So she shouldn't get into problems later. Another reason the Gemara says there in Gittin is it's a knas. A woman that makes a neder, she shouldn't think to herself, worst case scenario, my husband will divorce me and he'll remarry me. He'll calm down, he'll remarry me. Or if she misbehaves and the husband divorces her because of a shame, but Rashi says, he'll remarry me. So therefore, Chachamim gave a knas. Once she does this to this degree that the husband is divorcing her, he can never remarry her. That's the Tanakam here. But now there's a bunch of different opinions here that make a distinction. It depends what the case is. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol neder sheyada by Rabbim. It depends how strong the neder was. If she makes a neder that the public knows about this, in other words, that the neder is not in her hands anymore. She made a neder with the knowledge of the Rabbim. So it really depends on them, meaning that she cannot be matter this neder. So then, lo yachsa, she makes such kind of nedarim. So if he divorces her, he can't remarry her. Now, what Rabbi Yehuda holds is the reason that I just said that it's a knas. So when did they give her this knas that she can't get remarried to him if she makes such a kind of a neder? But lo yoda by Rabbim, if it's a kind of neder that's not made with the public's knowledge and it's just a private neder that could be nullified, so that's not such a strong neder, so they did not give her the knas and he can remarry her. Rab Meir says different. Now, Rab Meir's opinion and Rabbi Lazar's opinion, which is the main thing that the Gemara is going to focus on. So they both hold the other reason I said, that you can't ever remarry her because you're afraid that it might come out a kilkul, that he then may always come and argue after the get that the get was not serious because he could remarry her. So Rab Meir says it depends. If it's a case of a neder, that the only one that could nullify this neder is a chacham, so then lo yachser. So then you should not remarry her. Because we're afraid that the husband's actually going to say, oh, if I would have known that the chacham could be matter this neder, I would have never divorced her. But if it's a neder that you don't need the chacham to be matter neder, you yourself, the husband, could be matter this neder. So then yachzer, he's allowed to remarry her because over here we're not afraid that the husband's going to argue if I would have known. If you would have known, you yourself could go ahead and be matter her. Okay, so the point is, Rav Meir says that we would accept the argument, and it would be a problem with the get if the husband would come and say that, oh, if I would have known that the Rav, the Chacham, could be matter the neder. That's Rav Meir. Rabbi Lazar holds the exact opposite. We're going to skip the parentheses. It's not in the Mishnah over there in Gittin. It's not there. So Amar Rabbi Lazar says, no, it's the other way around. Lo yasru tzarich. They did not answer a woman that the Chacham is the one that's matter her neder. Really, that shouldn't have been usher. It's a gzeira. Elam ipnei, the main case where we're concerned that the husband will argue that the get was not serious, mipnei she'ein tzarich. In the case where you don't need the Chacham to be matter the neder, the husband himself could be matter the neder. So Rabbi Lazar says, Adarabah, dafka in the case where the husband himself could be matter neder, then we're afraid that after the get, and he finds out that he could have been matter neder, he's going to come and say, oh, if I would have known I could be matter the neder, I would have never given her a get. So the point is over here that we see a machlekes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Lazar. What's more acceptable for a husband to come and argue? Is it more acceptable for him to say that I would rely on a chacham to be matter the neder for my wife? Or is it more acceptable for a husband to say that if I would have known that I myself would be matter the neder, but not the chacham? That's the main point that's negeya here to prove that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Lazar argue about whether a person is ready for his wife to go to a bezdin, for the chacham, to be matter the neder. But before the Gemara explains that, the Gemara interjects and explains Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. What did Rabbi Yehuda say? When a person makes a neder al das rabim, you can't nullify such a neder. My time with Rabbi Yehuda, what's the source of what Rabbi Yehuda said? Because the pasuk says, we'll just finish off the sugi here. V'lo hikum b'nei Yisrael ki nishbu lehem. The Yidden did not hit the Giv'onim because they made a shvuah. They swore not to hit them. Who did? Nesiya Ye'eda. The Nesiya Ye'eda, which are the leaders of the Yidden. So because this was made a neder with the Nesiya Ye'eda, the public, so it's not a private neder that they made, so you cannot nullify this neder. Now, v'kama rabim, when he says here that you make a neder al das rabim, so what's considered to be rabim? Rav Nachman ben Yitzchak alma shloisha. It's 3 people. Why? Because it says yomim in the pasuk. When it says the term yomim, how much is that? Shnayim 2. When it says yomim rabim, when it adds the word rabim means 3. This is a pasuk that it says by Azav it says yomim rabim means 3. So we see that 3 is rabim is shloisha. So that's what rabim is. Rabbi Yitzchak alma asara. Rabbi Yitzchak says that over here in this pasuk it says Nesiya Eda, it actually means 10 people. Why? Eda ksivbu. It says the word Eda, Nesiya Eda, a congregation, is 10 people. Okay, so now going back to the machlokes of Rab Meir and Rab Elazar. Rab Meir said, Kol neder shetzarech hakiras chacham lo yachzer. If a person's wife made a neder and he divorced her, and what kind of a neder was this that the chacham could nullify this neder? So now we don't want him to remarry her. We're afraid that he's going to come and argue that I would have let the chacham bin mata the neder. Rabbi Elazar said the reverse. This case when the chacham is being mata the neder, that's not the main issue. The main issue is in a case where he could be mata the neder. It's just a gzeira that so too they asked a case when the chacham is mata the neder. So what are they arguing here about? V'mai kamiflagi. Rab Meir says, Adam roitze shetisbaze ishtoi bebezdin. A person is willing, in other words, he would agree that his wife should be embarrassed by a bezdin, that she should have to go to a chacham, and the chacham would be mata the neder. A person would agree to such a thing. So if he's going to come after the get and argue, if I only would have known that the chacham will be mata this neder, I wouldn't have given a get, we'll accept that taina, and it's going to make a problem for the get. But Rabbi Elazar disagrees. He says, no, ain't Adam roitze shetisbaze ishtoi bebezdin. Person would not want that his wife should be embarrassed in the business, so the fact that he would argue after a get, if I only would have known that the chacham could be mata the neder, I would have never given this get, we're not going to accept such a taina, because we know a person would not agree that his wife should have to go to a chacham to be mata the neder. So here we see this machlokes of Rab Meir and Rab Elazar going back to before, where the Gemara brought the steer of the 2 brises, whether a person's wife could be mata the neder after the marriage or not. So this is the machlokes of Rab Meir and Rab Elazar.